It's on, it's on. There's no sound.
There are other midnight cult films that are gruesomely horrible. And one of the best, or one of the worst, depending upon your point of view, is George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, which was only fairly successful when it was first released in 1967. But as the 1970s marched along, movie audiences seemed to rediscover their appetite for being scared out of their skins. And that's exactly what this next film does. Night of the Living Dead is shot in a deliberately grainy black and white newsreel style, and it's about human survivors barricading themselves in a cabin against an attack by flesh-eating zombies. The moment when those arms come through the wall, it's kind of one of those scenes I call a levitation scene. Everybody in the audience rises 3 inches out of the theater seat. Night of the Living Dead is crude at times. You could see that, and it's unevenly acted, unevenly directed. But at the basic gut level of shocking and scaring its audiences, it is gruesomely effective. So effective, indeed, that it became the only cult film to ever inspire its own sequel. In 1979, George Romero filmed another zombie attack called Dawn of the Dead, and this time it has a nice balance of the gruesome and the satirical as the zombies attack the suburban shopping center and lurch between the retail displays to the melodies of Muzak. Kind of a weird creepiness to the humor there. What you have are zombies launching an attack on shopping centers, which are kind of chain store paradises, standing for the middle-class consumer values of most of the parents of young cult filmgoers. And Dawn of the Dead very effectively alternates its satire with pure, unadulterating ghoulishness. So the satire and the bloody violence somehow irresistibly bring audiences back again and again.
You know, there are two films now, one black and white, Night of the Living Dead, and then this one in color. Only one is the cult film, really, and that's that first one in black and white, which looks like it was made by an amateur filmmaker. I think kids are drawn to things that don't look like they were made by adults, that don't smack of anything conservative or establishment or money, so they like that rough-hewn film. They don't even like establishment movies.
Maybe so. Maybe the second one with its satire on shopping centers is not as viscerally interesting as the first one, which is a raw assault, an aggressive assault on their senses. It causes them to be scared, it causes them to feel things, and to have an immediate experience, and maybe that's what they're going for in the cult
I think
film.
that's exactly what they're going for. There almost seems to be a competition among cult films to see which one can be the roughest and the raunchiest. The zombies are on the attack again in Night of the Living Dead, and our next film is a remake of George Romero's classic 1968 black and white cult horror film. It was made on the cheap 22 years ago. The original movie, however, earned a lot of praise for its low-key, sometimes droll approach to horror, with convincing zombies who just kept on coming, slowly, tottering, and steadily so. The new version, also written by Romero but directed by Tom Savini, is in color, but features many of the same elements. The zombies, slow on the attack, against a man and a woman who find themselves trapped in a farmhouse.
What's happening?
I don't know.
Nobody knows.
The classic shots of the zombies here, staggering across the countryside, are a big feature in this remake. I just don't think they're as menacing, however, in color.
They're so slow.
We could just walk right past them. We wouldn't even have to run.
I think she's right. They conceivably could walk away, and that would be the end of the movie. Nevertheless, other potential victims congregate in the farmhouse, and there's naturally dissension led by a nervous father.
Said they were gonna board it up. Board it up, please.
And you refused to help them.
That's right, Helen. I refused. Right, I refused. You know why? Because they're wrong, Helen. It's a stupid idea.
Nothing special there. There are a few plot twists from the original, but the overall spirit of the movie is the same, leaving the obvious question, why was this film made? And aside from monetary reasons, I can't think of a single good reason. In fact, if this has been the picture made in '68, it wouldn't have been a cult film.
Wouldn't have liked it then. No, this movie is so close to the original that it doesn't bring anything new to the party.
Correct.
And if you're going to look at a movie called Night of the Living Dead, you might as well look at the first one. It's a lot better. So that's it.
Nothing
Waste
more
of
to
time.
say.
It's kind of like Lord of the Flies. Why bother?
My name is Martin. I'm 84 years old. People think I'm crazy when I tell them how old I am. I'd like to be normal. I just have a sickness.
Martin, another kind of terror.
But now I'm going to praise a film on a violent and depraved subject, flesh-eating zombies. It's Dawn of the Dead, a sensationally effective new thriller by George Romero, who is the same man who gave us the original Night of the Living Dead. And it's one of the most horrifying films I've ever seen, literally, because the dead begin to walk the earth again, and they're after living flesh. 4 people survive, and they occupy a suburban shopping center, and the film makes satiric points out of the way the zombie lifestyle contrasts with the retail paradise. Now here's a scene where 2 survivors turn on the electricity in the shopping mall.
Keys to the kingdom. Grab the walkie-talkies. $15 upper and lower. Right here. How about a little music? What? Might cover the noise we make. Hit 'em all. Might as well have power and everything. We might need it.
Well, you have to admit there's kind of a creepy humor there. But one of the things that makes Dawn of the Dead so effective is the way it alternates humor and satire with pure, unadulterated ghoulishness. Here's a scene, for example, in which the survivors try to barricade themselves inside a department store.
Stephen, don't go down there.
Won't open. Not working.
Everybody hates to miss a sale at Penny's. You got just a glimpse there of the terrifying nature of the zombies because, frankly, on television, we can't show you how really violent and really bloody this film is. So I'm going to combine a recommendation with a warning. The recommendation is that Dawn of the Dead is one of the best and most original horror films I've ever seen. And the warning is, this is really extreme in its violence. It goes beyond what you may have seen before. It's for adults only. Proceed with caution.
I like the picture too, but I really don't think it's very terrifying. I think the zombies are a little more comical than anything else. There's a guy gets his head lopped off by a helicopter blade. I normally would shrink at something like that. In this film, it's done so broadly that I found it humorous.
How'd you like the intestines when they were disemboweled? Huh?
Roger, I looked. Normally, I would look away. I think the guy somehow does it in a comic way that makes you at least watch it.
I agree, too. The movie is some kind of a horror masterpiece. I just think there are some people who ought to be warned. It's violent. Might want to take along an air sickness bag.
I think what I enjoyed more than any of this that we've talked about, the violence, is the statement about shopping centers. I think they've sucked the life out of these places. They're enclosed malls. They're lifeless. Obviously, we got zombies walking around them. That's what George Romero has to say about American shopping malls.
Knightriders, the legend is born.
No, this is going to be an entirely new experience.
Creepshow, the most fun you'll ever have being scared.
Our first movie is the third in a series by director George Romero that began back in 1967 with a low-budget cult film, Night of the Living Dead. That movie told the story of a race of ghouls that had inhabited the earth and were devoting their lives, or maybe I should say their deaths, to lurching around and eating large chunks of healthy living human beings. The first movie was followed in 1980 by Dawn of the Dead, and now comes Day of the Dead. It continues the story as a small band of survivors huddle in an underground storage area beneath Florida and try to perform experiments on captive ghouls. In this scene, there is growing tension between the scientists and military men.
What are you talking about? Make them behave. What does that mean?
It means keeping them from wanting to eat us, for one thing. Sarah's research is more esoteric than mine. She's looking for a way to reverse the process, a way to eradicate the problem. It could take a long time, a very long time. She may never find what she's looking for.
That scientist's nickname is Frankenstein. He's learned to train the ghouls to do simple tasks like this good student he calls Bub. Bub is a real quick student. He has a lot of fun, too, with a Sony Walkman, which he enjoys.
This is very good because you would want to train Bub, of course, to learn how to shoot a gun. That would be very important.
That's one of those scenes where when you see it in the movie, you can bet your entire paycheck that by the end of the movie, Bub's going to have a gun that does have bullets in it. If Bub looks a little unappetizing there, though, you ought to see the rest of this movie because Romero has pulled out all the stops and turned Day of the Dead into a real bloody, gory geek show where things like cannibalism, disembowelment, and evisceration are pretty much routine, everyday sorts of things. The movie alternates those gruesome scenes with a very talkative plot in which the angry military man makes endless threatening speeches against the civilians until eventually, of course, it's free lunchtime for the ghouls. I thought this movie was a real disappointment, especially after Dawn of the Dead, which I admired very much. It lacks the high energy and the ruthless anarchy of that earlier movie, and it gets bogged down in a lot of overacted speech-making and recycled special effects.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. This is an awful film, actually, I think. The Dawn of the Dead was the one set in the shopping center, and had a lot of comments on the shopping mall as a very arid, death-like place and kind of creepy.
In this movie, they say all the shopping malls are closed.
Right.
So we have this one-set movie.
One-set movie in a basement,
Right.
which is really exciting. Comment on basements, I suppose. Actually, this film is like a trip to a rendering factory. I mean, or a bad butcher shop. That's all you see is just blood and guts being thrown across the floor of the garage or wherever they shot this picture. And there's really not much more to it. And from the actor's point of view, I would think the actors would be smarter than this. And that is, if you start screaming in the first scene of the movie, you have no place to go.
Yeah, nothing left. And also, another thing about the characters, the first two movies, we had a lot of sympathy for the surviving human beings.
Yes.
Will they escape the ghouls? Will they hang in there together?
Right.
Will they cooperate? This movie is filled with a lot of nastiness and hostility and anger among the human beings who are fighting with each other while the ghouls just kind of shuffle on and rip their arms apart and shuffle off again, so that there's nobody for us to really get behind.
Nothing, except behind the movie and behind the door of the theater showing the movie.
Day of the Dead is the third movie in George Romero's Living Dead trilogy, a series that started back in 1967 with the famous classic Night of the Living Dead, and continued in 1980 with Dawn of the Dead, a movie that I thought was really very good, very effective. Unfortunately, Day of the Dead is not nearly as good as it continues the story of a small band of human survivors who are trying to hold off the hordes of ghouls who have inhabited the earth. The angle in this movie is that maybe science can find a way to use these ghouls, maybe train them to do useful tasks, like, for example, in this scene, train them how to shoot a gun. Now, I don't think that's real bright.
Let's see what Bub does in this situation.
By the end of the movie, both the human researchers and the ghouls are locked up in an underground salt mine in Florida, where it looks as if the ghouls may have the last word. One of the increasing problems with this series is that there's only a limited number of things you can do with a ghoul. For example, in Dawn of the Dead, 5 years ago, they had them in a shopping mall where one of the great scenes had the ghouls trying to walk up the down escalator. Well, that was kind of funny, but in this movie, all they do is moan a lot and shuffle around looking ugly and hideous. So that leaves it up to the humans, and they talk too much in this movie. They scream too much. They have too much to say, too little to do. The movie never really goes anywhere. So I give Day of the Dead 1.5 stars, and I'm Roger Ebert. Done without this summer, one of my real disappointments was Day of the Dead, the third movie in George Romero's trilogy about ghouls who inherit the earth. After Night of the Living Dead in the 1960s, and especially after the brilliant 1980 movie Dawn of the Dead, I was not expecting Romero's third movie to be such a letdown, such a retread of the same old ideas.
Shoot that woman.
Bang! You're dead!
Shoot that woman or you're dead.
Remember the old Stan Freberg record where the guy is arrested for overacting? I think they could have served a lot of warrants at this movie.
Oh, you bet.
The zombies didn't do anything new in Day of the Dead. They just sort of shuffled around, moaning and looking like they've been left out in the sun too long. And the dialogue was too preachy and too talky and too overly dramatic. And as you could hear there, every time anybody made a point, the music made the point too. You know, a lot of drum rolls for every dramatic point in the dialogue. Romero, however, despite all of the stylistic excess, didn't come up with anything new to say about his Living Dead. And the sad fact of the matter is the zombies tried, but they just couldn't carry the movie all by themselves.
You're absolutely right. Last time he put them in a fresh location, which was fun, a shopping mall, and made a sophisticated point about how the zombies are even more attractive than the shoppers that are going around walking through the mall. Okay, that was a film that had a sense of humor and an attitude. This film, you got a bunch of zombies and a bunch of really bad actors, as you say, trapped in a basement. That's it. They're all in the basement. They never leave. It's really just boring.
Eventually, what you come down to is that thing that I often find in movies like this where the distances never match, and I get distracted by this. You see them coming, and they're real close. Then you get the shot of the people escaping, and they're real far. And then they're real close, and you think they never catch up with them. Eventually, you want at least one zombie to catch one human so you can know that it's going to not just be an endless chase for the whole
That's
movie.
why the parody, Return of the Living Dead, released at the same time, was much more funny because at least it had an attitude about the zombies. This film doesn't.
The people who made Return of the Living Dead were not tired of zombies.
Okay, these zombies just drool.
next movie is an odd and creative, somewhat confused thriller named Monkey Shines, directed by George Romero, the man who will be forever famous for making Night of the Living Dead. His story this time involves a relationship between a quadriplegic and a very intelligent monkey who has been trained to help him with simple tasks around the house. But no matter how that sounds, this is not a warm and positive human interest story. This is not the movie of the week on television, leaves you with a warm feeling in your heart. Nope, this one is a scary thriller in which the monkey turns into a malevolent mind reader who uses its animal instincts to carry out the hero's secret dreams of revenge, even against the hero's conscious will. At first, though, the addition of cute little Ella the monkey seems like a great idea to the hero, played by Jason Begay.
What the hell is going on here?
She's all yours, Ace. A present.
You serious? You're giving me a monkey? How am I supposed to take care of it, Jeff?
The idea is that it's going to take care of you.
This monkey seems more intelligent than the normal simian, and no wonder it has been injected with human brain cells in a secret experiment.
Ella, fetch. Atta girl. I know it's heavy, babe. You can do it. Come on, stretch for it. Make it burn.
There are times when Ella almost seems to understand human speech.
What was the ruling? Well, Mr. Mann, does your friend know the answer, or do you?
The ruling held that courts could not upset valid seniority systems to protect the rights of minority workers.
Yeah.
What eventually develops is that the monkey is telepathic and able to communicate its savage instincts to human beings so that anyone around this monkey gets savage too. But that's only one of the threads in this movie, which also involves a drug-crazed mad scientist, a love story, a nasty and vindictive nurse, a strangled parakeet, a couple of murders, and a sneaky surgeon who steals his patient's girlfriend. Not to mention, of course, a medical miracle and all of those great tricks by the monkey. In fact, I think Monkey Shines would have been about 50% better if it had contained about 50% less plot. You've got to give this movie credit. It doesn't play safe. There's nothing in it that's routine or predictable, but it's a structural mess that needed a big rewrite to whip it into shape. They should have taken out, I think, for starters, the mother, and I enjoyed the nurse, but the nurse's parakeet could have gone. Yeah. I'm giving this movie, I'm affectionate about this movie, but I've got to give it thumbs down because it's just not disciplined in what it wants to do.
One of the things that's not disciplined, and I didn't care for it either, is how slow it takes to get the monkey malevolent. I mean, I think we go through at least a couple of reels in setting up all this experiment. You don't know where this film is going. I think if there was editing to be done, I'd edit right off the top before, and then... Well,
I didn't, you see, I thought at first it was going to be a do-gooder, warm-hearted movie about this wonderful monkey and, you know...
But it wasn't going to be.
And then the fact that it turned was amusing to me.
It did not
interesting to me.
It did not surprise me that it was going to turn. I mean, when I
maybe because you knew that the subtitle of the movie was an experiment in terror. Maybe that was a clue.
That was a clue. It should have been a clue for you. And also, George Romero makes thrillers, and so I knew that that was another big clue. So I think that really, as you said, the scripting is a complete rewrite.
The first film is The Dark Half, and like the movie Misery, it's a Stephen King thriller about a writer's torment. Unfortunately, unlike Misery, it's more of a gimmick-filled thriller than a character study. The gimmick is that the writer has an evil twin brother who is a serial killer. Timothy Hutton plays the writer who's being set up for the murders his twin has committed, according to his wife, Amy Madigan. What's spooky about the killer is that he has taken the name George Stark, the pseudonym under which Hutton writes successful detective novels. Hello, George.
Better do what I say or I'll be coming for you. You will die like no other man on earth has ever died before.
Complicating the story is the issue of where did the killer come from? Timothy Hutton had a brain operation as a child, and the doctors removed the beginnings of a twin brother. Has the fetus come to life? Or is the evil twin just part of every one of us? My problem, I didn't care which was the truth.
In your subconscious, you wanted it to live. You wanted it so badly, it actually came to be.
And here is the evil twin, also played by Timothy Hutton, as he threatens the writer's twin children.
Let me have them. You can have one.
And then we get the inevitable slasher movie conclusion, including Killer Birds. The Dark Half was made by director George Romero, the author of the low-budget horror classic Night of the Living Dead. This production seems cumbersome by comparison. I was bored by it and by Timothy Hutton's double role. I'd rather see Misery again than see the dark half anytime.
Oh, I would too, although I did feel that Timothy Hutton did a good job in the double role, especially in the role of the evil twin.
Probably that was more interesting.
What disappointed me was it starts out as something supernatural. In other words, there's a great image where they open up his brain and an eyeball blinks at them, and you think, boy, this is going to be something. But then I had the same problem. Was the evil twin just kind of an astral projection of his subconscious? Was it an imposter? Did the fetus grow? And that's impossible. And the movie doesn't care. By the end of the movie, it's nothing more than a routine slasher movie in which the evil twin could be any guy off the street with a knife and a game plan.
Yeah, a start of half of a premise.
Yeah.
And then a blown movie.
Real disappointing.
Mila, was that you?
He knows we're here. It's like he's talking to them.
George A. Romero's Land of the Dead includes the director's name in the title, but Romero has earned that right. He reinvented the zombie genre with the famous Night of the Living Dead in the late 60s, and this is his fourth zombie epic. As before, he sneaks in some social satire. The zombies are getting smarter, and the surviving humans have barricaded themselves inside a luxury high-rise run by Dennis Hopper. John Leguizamo plays a mercenary who wants to live in the high-rise and steals Hopper's invaluable armored truck named Dead Reckoning.
I'd like you to handle that withdrawal for me, with interest. $5 million. I'm gonna blow you out of your castle, because I've got Dead Reckoning.
That's unfortunate.
Simon Baker plays the hero who's assigned by Hopper to get back the Renegade and the truck. This is a classic Dennis Hopper performance.
They'll never get across the river.
I wouldn't be so sure. Learn how to work together.
They're mindless walking corpses, and many of us will be too if you don't stay focused on the task at hand. Zombies, man. They creep me out.
Eugene Clark plays a zombie named Big Daddy, and when he grabs a machine gun, we realize the zombies are taking it to another level. John Leguizamo seems to be in every other movie these days with a weird funny or funny weird performance, and his social climbing mercenary is a case study of a guy who has killed a lot of zombies and thinks he has paid his dues and deserves a break. Thumbs up.
Thumbs down for me, Roger. I do have to say I like that this movie sort of begins where a lot of zombie movies end. You've got I like the idea of the worlds coexisting in this Trumpian Dennis Hopper character. All that was pretty interesting, but then it just becomes
Trumpian, that's a good word.
it just becomes another zombie movie, and we get a little hint. Yeah, the guy picks up the gun and I'm thinking, okay, maybe these zombies are going to sort of zombify, think for themselves, but then they don't. They become zombies again.
Well,
and you know, we've talked about this before. Zombies just aren't that interesting as villains because they just zombie ahead.
The fatal flaw in almost every zombie movie I've seen is the fact that they're so easy to kill.
Yeah, you just kill them, you know,
shoot them.
and they just want to feed
when the
off
truck
of
goes out there, they're firing at dozens of zombies with the machine gun. However, what's fascinating is the Dennis Hopper character and the fact these people live in a gated community, which is kind of a metaphor for a lot of things.
Sure, sure.
And I love the TV ad for Fiddler's Green, which shows everyone all nicely dressed and sipping their cocktails and having their hors d'oeuvres, and you wonder, how do they feel with the zombies?
Yeah, but I would have liked to see more of that.
More
as
of
I
that,
said, you know, I'm marginal on this. It's certainly better than most zombie movies we've seen. George Romero is definitely the Orson Welles, I think, of zombie filmmakers. But marginal thumbs down for me.
Next movie. The more we document our lives visually, the more movies we see dealing with this theme of perpetual voyeurism. Think of it, from Blair Witch Project to Cloverfield to Vantage Point, the cheap thrills lurking in this theme of America's unfunniest home videos keeps forcing its way onto our movie screens. George A. Romero's Diary of the Dead is the latest and most despairing of Romero's pictures, which began 40 years ago with Night of the Living Dead. Great film. Romero opens the new film with this sly TV news footage of some bad news regarding the undead.
I don't believe this.
What? Is there something with the camera? Just fix it.
She's still moving.
The plot follows a group of Pittsburgh film students out in the woods making a mummy movie. The student film director, played by Joshua Close, films everything every second for posterity's sake. Now, in this scene, Deborah, played by Michelle Morgan, reunites, however briefly, with her family. Well, you can't go home again. Diary of the Dead may be modest and self-referential, and it doesn't really have much of an ending, but I liked it. It's very crafty when it comes to pulling new variations out of an old theme, like so many entrails. Yes.
I found no creativity here whatsoever.
No!
Yeah, of course, all due credit or sometimes blame to Romero for creating the modern zombie flick and 8 million spin-offs since the original some 40 years ago. But Michael, first of all, we just saw this in Cloverfield where some kid is so addicted to, you know, shooting everything with his handheld camera, and his friends are saying, oh, it's not real for you unless it's on camera. I mean, we just saw that. And we have an entire other film that every single shot is with the handheld jiggly stuff, which I'm so tired of. And I'm zombied out. These are the same zombies we've seen in 100 other movies. They don't do anything except for lurch forward, and you have to shoot them in the head, and they want to bite you, and they want to eat you.
Right.
The first couple of scenes were pretty cool, pretty interesting, with the news footage and the kids making the movie. After that, it was the same old zombie stuff.
I think if you take that first scene where you see the news footage, which has been allegedly uploaded to the internet, right? Where an ordinary crime scene turns into this sort of like unholy undead melee. Right?
Yeah, that was fun.
Right. I like it, and I think that's the key to appreciating the picture, because it's more about this mordant sense of humor than it is about real gut.
Yeah, but Michael, that's not what the rest of the picture is. Okay, now we get in the RV and we have to run over zombies, and we get in battles with zombies, and then we get to a house, and here come the zombies shooting their arms through the walls and coming after us.
Yeah, but you're making it sound like
we've seen that all before.
Yeah, but you're making it sound too ordinary.
I'm not making it sound too ordinary. It is too ordinary.
I know you're all about speed, and you're all about 28 days and 28 weeks later. Pictures I liked a lot, and there's actually kind of a sly dig.
Those were HGH zombies, you know.
But did you like the scene in the Mummy movie within a movie, in this one, where the director's actually saying, no, zombies move much slower than that?
I mean, but again, we're going back to the first 15 minutes of the movie, and then it just collapses under its own weight. The same stuff we've seen a million times before.
Disagree.
All right, sir.
I can hold my breath